Yeah, really top colt. Always takes a good colt.
Australian Football Video is proud to present the Perfect Prezzy. In fact, a range of over 100 perfect prezzies. You can choose from player profiles, value-packed back-to-back packs, special events, and fantastic compilations. Only from Australian Football Video. So elbow your way into any sensible retail outlet and buy a prezzy that's sure to please.
I'd like to see that, Harry.
In our short history of not quite 5 years, a lot has been achieved as far as forming a football club's concerned.
This decision by the board of directors of Port Adelaide is obviously the most significant move made by the club in its 120-year history.
They demanded that Port withdraw its bid and stop all negotiations with the AFL by 12 noon tomorrow.
This league will not support the Port Adelaide Football Club in any way in its bid to enter a team in the Australian.
So we can't stop things now. They will go ahead.
It's understood one option is to ban the club from playing in the SANFL.
Then a silent and flushed Magpie group emerged.
We're going to have a very, very sad situation here in South Australian football.
Port Adelaide crowd, gee, given KG no sort of serve. He's got a police escort.
This is quite silly.
It's ridiculous. The league sees Monday night's crucial AFL meeting as a big chance to block Port's bid.
If the clubs, for one reason or another, see fit to knock it back, then, you lose some, you win some.
They met at President Max Bashir's office this morning. After 2 hours, they put to a vote a plan to enter a composite team in the AFL under the same conditions as the AFL offered Port. The vote was passed 10-1. The decision was then faxed to AFL chiefs and to each individual AFL club president.
It would make it a far more attractive proposal.
Depending on negotiations with the AFL, a combined side would be playing as early as next season.
Injunction papers have been served on Port Adelaide, forcing them to appear in the Supreme Court on Friday.
Can't make any comment at the moment. The matters are before the
We
court.
need to convince one more club to vote no, and Port's plan is vetoed. The AFL's deferral last night was seen on both sides of the border as a setback for Port
And that
Adelaide.
the AFL Commission conduct further negotiations with all relevant parties in relation to the admission of a team from South Australia in the AFL competition.
It was revealed today that 4 years ago the SANFL registered a company called the Adelaide Football Club. Outside the court, the AFL's lawyer Jeff Brown kept in constant touch with his bosses.
We'll just wait and see what happens with the court case later today.
The agreement between Port and the AFL expires in 6 hours, allowing the AFL and the SANFL to discuss a composite.
Following the announcement, the league will ask to move into the national competition next season.
And it's my view that they will accept the situation of the competent side.
I think our chances today are so much better than they were a month ago.
I'm very confident that we'll have a team for 1991 and we'll continue to work in that direction.
At 7:45 last night, the news finally broke. The deal is expected to be finalised within 24 hours.
The The AFL directors are now expected to rubber stamp Adelaide's entry at a meeting on Wednesday night. But the Adelaide club is already in full swing. A deputation headed by Neil Curley and Bob Hammond travelled to Melbourne over the weekend to talk with South Australians who are considering signing or renewing AFL contracts.
The South Australian National Football League signed an agreement with the AFL commissioners in Melbourne last night. The spokesman says 7 more drafted players have decided to sign up with the composite side.
Mr Bashir and General Manager Lee Wicker were also elected today to an interim board for the Adelaide Football Club. Speculation is the grand final pair John Cale and Graham Corns are front-runners. 42-year-old was announced as the man to lead Adelaide into the big league.
Yes, my attitude has changed slightly. This team has come upon us a bit quicker than we perhaps could have imagined. We could have predicted 3 months ago that this would happen. There was no way known that I would have thought it was possible.
Also announced today the appointment of Neil Curley as team manager and former Norwood and Collingwood star Michael Taylor as assistant coach to Graham Corns.
The squad turned out together in the new club colours for the first time.
All of a sudden they're teammates and they're blokes you've got to put your body on the line for them.
From the historic announcement, Adelaide had 184 days to prepare for its first match. A named Guernsey sponsor and squad of players, and the Crows were away. Adelaide had its first training session on October 29, 1990, and endured a pre-season where they would train 13 out of 14 days. There was the gruelling commando-style camp at Rapid Bay. This was all about turning SNFL players into AFL footballers.
There were blokes from all over the state, and blokes who'd been built in the year before, and blokes you might not have liked, and all of a sudden you were thrown together. You hadn't planned it. You were there on I think it was in October, late October, early November, and all of a sudden you were training together. You were living and sleeping with each other 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. And it was a little awkward. I mean, as it developed and as we trained harder and we started to sweat together and have a bit of fun, it developed very quickly. But the early days were a little awkward, and I guess, looking back on them, they were good days, but there were some trying times early.
Essendon arrived in town for the first trial game on Friday, January 31. At West Lakes, the boulevard was a sea of cars. Inside the ground, 45,000 fans were there to see the Crows run out for the first time.
The ball no, but there should be a free kick for Lindsay. No, the umpire's let the play go. Straight in, clean fly. Straight at the big upright, and there's the first goal of the match for the Adelaide Crows, and they're looking pretty good. Redbone now, only small but very quick, and he is hit very hard by Romano Negri, and players letting the tensions get to them early. Throwing from the side, Madden gets front spot. McGuinness, gee, he's everywhere tonight. Puts the ball into the square. Klug again, ball comes to ground. Filkey not holding for there. No, Jarman goes through a web, gets the handball across to Klug, doesn't miss from there, puts it through, and John Klug has his first. And aren't the Crows glad that he's settled his contractual misdemeanour? He's made it 4 for the night. The Crows have won this. 13 points. Here's the siren. A tremendous victory. Crowd rises as one. Graham Corns would be a very, very happy man. The Crows have virtually led all night.
A 27-point win. This is what Bomber coach Kevin Sheedy had to say.
I think coming to Adelaide in the next decade is going to be a pretty interesting exercise for Victorians, I can assure you of that.
The excitement escalated in the first round of the then Foster's Cup. Malcolm Blight's Geelong side was the opponent.
Filkey. Will it get to him? It sits now. Goes backwards. Goes to half-forward. They've got a paddock here for McDermott. Will it sit? He can go all the way. He can bounce as many times as he likes. He'll hit Hodges on the chest. It was wonderful footy.
The 77-point triumph had interstate critics predicting big things for the new kid on the block. The Crows then travelled to Waverley for their quarter-final appearance against St Kilda, where they won by 10 points. Next up, North Melbourne in the semi.
McGuinness battling hard onto that favoured left foot. Short pass into the pocket. Hodges, play on. Touched off McGuinness's boot.
Has to be a
now
free kick.
Hodges from deep in that left forward pocket. Hooks the kick. It's close to the line. Murphy, good play. Good solid mark in the goal square.
The Crows bowed out of the pre-season competition, having turned in a credible campaign. It was time for the season proper and the round 1 match against Hawthorn. Chris McDermott was named captain, Tony McGuinness his deputy. Adelaide was braced with anticipation as AFL football was about to land on its doorstep. In the hours before the game, Corns spoke of nervous energy being rife in the Crows camp. The tension was about to be transformed into euphoria.
A credit to the public of South Australia. They've given the Crows full support, and here they go to open the season, to open their AFL career. And it's Negri who gets a mighty thump down towards the half-forward line. The Crows through Tregenza, the centre half-forward. Tregenza's had about 5 kicks in the early minutes. Smith, Marshall, Crows on fire early. Marshall goes towards centre half-forward. It's the mark, nothing clear. Just inside 50, kicks from right on the line to the goal line. It could be another goal to the Crows. It is. Has tried to crash his way through. McDermott does it beautifully to Marshall. He sets sail to the forward line once again.
Chance for his second.
25 metres out. Mark, but Marshall coming through strongly. Set sail towards Klug at half forward. Over the top he goes. McIntyre. This looks like another one. He shoots. He goes.
Assisted to the interchange bench. McDermott. Oh, down he goes. Oh, there'll be a fight on here. Negri's in quickly. McDermott's hurt. That was terrible stuff there by the two Hawthorn players, and McDermott has not moved.
Klug over the top, gets it across to McGuinness, spins out once, twice, shoots. Oh,
Collingwood Guernsey couldn't get a kick.
Oh, look at this!
Ford Hocking!
Oh, Eddie Hocking! Sail with a long kick into the forward line, off hands to Lidner, quick hand pass to Hart, goal! He'll have a shot, there's no one in the square, he just go over the top, will he? Unselfish play.
I haven't found a treat in the shot as the siren goes.
It was an emphatic 86-point win. The Hawks would win the flag that year, but the Crows had won over a city. Back to earth the next week, a clinical Carlton came to Football Park and took the points.
Does well. McGuinness from 50 metres. Standing start. Puts it into full forward. The only man there.
Then the first away game at the SCG, where Adelaide came back from a 27-point deficit at three-quarter time.
There's Hodges. Punched away by Nettlebeck. Maynard. Snap. They're in front.
It was a rugged start to the first Windy Hill visit. The Bombers reversed the trial game result.
There's some wrestling going on. Here's a chance for McIntyre. Back to Klug. Klug on the left foot. Round the corner.
West Coast was too good at Subiaco, but led by Tony McGuinness, who was playing his first match against his former club, Adelaide was back on the winners list against Footscray. But the trip to Moorabbin and St Kilda was a Tony Lockett-inspired nightmare. Plugger booted 12, the Saints by 131 points. It was their biggest victory, and to this day, Adelaide's greatest defeat. A different form of heartbreak at the MCG, which was then undergoing work for the new Great Southern Stand. The Crows were up by 21 points with 9 minutes to go. Wayne Carey and North Melbourne went about their own renovations.
The half-forward line, Carey the mark. There's the drop punt, beautiful balance, and I think he's put it through. Side looking for Smart. There's the play and there's the siren. North Melbourne has stolen the game from Adelaide by 2 points. 18-12 to 18-10.
Chris McDermott's look said it all. Adelaide slumped to 12th, their lowest slide of the season. A 34-point win over Melbourne was followed by another flogging, this time against Geelong at Kidinia Park.
Quickly can't get through. Abernathy gets his foot to the ball quickly. Up to full forward. Neil falls over. McGuinness. Snapshot by Tony McGuinness is good. Well,
the Crows were badly in need of a break. Fitzroy came to Football Park on a bleak night and dominated for most of the game. Fans were already leaving when somehow the football god smiled and Rod Jamieson kicked straight.
Right over the distance, I think he may have. Yes, 44 seconds remaining. And they've
got to get a goal. They've got to get a goal.
Well, he's a long, long way out. He just kicks over the centre. They need a mark.
Hold.
Another free kick.
Oh,
another free kick.
He was held initially.
30 seconds remaining. Jarman. He's got to go long.
Why did he go out there?
He's gone to Paul Roos. He couldn't take the mark. But Roos tries to bottle it up.
Now boy's going to hold it. Holding the ball.
Oh, this is murder. Save in this game, it's been pinched. Absolutely stolen by...
Well, it's going to be the last kick of the day. This is going to be the last kick.
But watch this on replay.
Look at it.
He's tried to make an effort.
But Jamieson is, I'll tell you what,
might have been for a throw.
They've got the best guy having the kick. He is a great kick. He's going to torpedo punt.
The siren has gone. The siren has gone. This kick, if it's a goal, will win the match for the Crows from 47 metres.
It'll make the distance.
Oh, he's kicked it. They've stolen it. It's a goal.
absolute murder.
It was another tough day out the following week against Richmond, but it landed the Crows their first win on Melbourne soil.
It's Filkey. His kick is not too bad. Centre half forward, Gather Hocking. Handball to Hart. Hart's short pass is pretty good.
Well beaten by Lambert, but I think that's a goal. He slotted that one, and that is the Seaver.
Brisbane was easily accounted for at home. With a 7-7 win-loss ratio, Adelaide ventured to the dreaded Victoria Park and was blown away by Collingwood to the tune of 131 points.
Our bodies was much smaller in comparison to our VFL, AFL opponents, and I guess we paid the price. I mean, we could be competitive for a quarter or a half a lot of times in the suburban warfare, as they call it, but once the body started to tire, we certainly struggled to keep up with them in the second half, and we copped our fair share of losses and came back to Adelaide with our tail between our legs a lot of times.
It didn't get much better against Hawthorn at Waverley. With an 8-0 head start, the Hawks romped in. Rod Jamison was fast becoming a focal point up forward. During the week, the Adelaide Match Committee addressed several areas for the match against Carlton at Princes Park. The big problem was slow starts. The Crows beat the Blues on a day where Chris McDermott showed that friendships mean nothing on the field.
He smacked me many times in the game, and he's up about 4-0 at this stage, so it was a pretty poor effort on my behalf, and I got a phone call from his mum the next day wanting to know if we were fighting or not. Bit of fun. We sort of run into each other during the games a bit and have a bit of a laugh, and if either one of us can get one in on the other one, well, you take that opportunity, but he's still in front.
The finals were still a reality, especially with Adelaide's next 3 matches at home, but the loss to the lowly Swans really hurt.
To the boos of the crowd has put it straight through the middle, and Sydney have hit back and hit the lead.
It was probably the one which cost a finals place. The next week Adelaide took on and beat Essendon with a classy display.
Kick to Jamison. What a great kick.
That was a magnificent kick. Jamison is loose. Lindner is breaking. Jamison puts it out in front. Can Lindner reach it? Yes, he can.
Back to Wren. Clever. Brown, they're trying to get it out. Brown with the little one. Jamison's give to Jarman to kick the goal in front.
Nigel Smart's mark against West Coast was a highlight. A youngster by the name of Sean Wren was starting to make an impact after his debut against the Swans, but the Eagles took the points. It made the trip to the Western Oval a must-win affair against Footscray. The Crows were still a silly chance to the finals, but on a dreadful day, the Dogs proved too determined. St Kilda came to Football Park with real purpose. They were 4th on the premiership table, with their first finals campaign for many years looming. The Saints did the job for Ken Sheldon.
He kicks it towards him and he takes a super mark.
That was a great mark.
Here's a chance for McIntyre again, hooking it up in front of goal. One-on-one contest. Oh, Mark Jefferson. Great way to bounce. Oh, bounces the way of Micken. Micken over the top. Here's Bartlett with a chance, an open goal. Bartlett kicks for his second and puts it through.
And so the last game of that inaugural year, North Melbourne at home. In front of a big crowd, the Crows finished the season as they began. An 11-goal second term saw them set for a big day out. Rod Jamison booted 8, Adelaide by 73.
Ginza. Oh, good mark. Commentators' nightmare, those two. Oh, look at the mark. He is an opposing player, Wren.
He did himself nice in that beat, didn't he?
Oh, he's only a young kid too, and look at that kick. Beautiful pass. Filkey's having a great day. The short one is on. Oh, look at the mark.
Official attendance today, 36,225. Gee, they have supported their Crows this season. Oh, superbly done there. Knocked on, and the goal results to Klug after the good work from Filkey.
After the game, the players did a lap of the park acknowledging their supporters. During the course of the year, 509,236 South Australians had gone to watch the Crows. And 12 losses for a final ranking of 9th. Nigel Smart became the club's first All-Australian. Mark Micken was best and fairest and also polled the best in the Brownlow. Rod Jamison topped the goal scoring with 49 goals. It was back to rapid day for the pre-season slog, the Crows knowing that their initial success now stood for not much. there were 8 players missing who had been delisted by the club. Danny Hughes managed only 1 year after his return from Melbourne. Bruce Lindsay is now the team runner. Into the squad came 8 young homegrown products, and if you look at some of the names, Corns & Co were pretty well spot on. Off the field, football manager Neil Curley returned to coaching at his beloved West Adelaide. He was replaced by North Adelaide general manager John Condon. Former Sturt great John Halbert was appointed chairman of selectors. A huge membership was matched by huge expectations. In a year the marketing gurus declared was so bright, the Crows had to wear shades. But from the outset, there were setbacks. In the trial game against West Coast, Andrew Jarman damaged finger tendons and was sidelined for 8 weeks. In the Foster's Cup, the Crows beat Carlton by 40 points and the following week dispatched the Dogs, a game which saw the first appearance of a young forward who would become a phenomenon.
Modra, he's got it again. McDermott, McGuinness. Needs a big mark here. Oh look, huge climb on the mark taken by Modra.
Kick in short now. Ingerson in the pocket. High bomb. Modra! Well, we can't take that one off him. We'll be saying that a few times this year, I think.
The Crows bowed out in the semi-final against Fitzroy, and in a trial game before the season proper, Nigel Smart dislocated a shoulder. Footscray was first up in 92, the Crows losing by 27 points. After a bye, it was mixed fortunes at Princes Park. They beat Melbourne by 11 points. 7 days later, the Weed got up high, but Fitzroy were more desperate and won by 33 in the game where Rod Jamieson withdrew, forcing the Crows to include Tony Modra for his first senior match. Then there were good wins over Richmond and Brisbane at Football Park, but they were followed by 2 big losses across the border. Maravincur struck again with the Saints, this time dishing out a 74-point hiding, Lockett again having a big day out. Cardinia Park was also becoming a Crows graveyard, Geelong inflicting a massive 123-point drubbing. It didn't get much better. Collingwood scrambled home by 5 points at Football Park as the Crows slumped to 12th on the premiership table. And when the Eagles jumped them on a wet night in Perth, they had suffered their worst run of 4 consecutive losses. The time came to turn it around, and they did that against North Melbourne at Football Park.
The free kick doesn't come his way. Doesn't matter. It's Schwert who has it. Now he'll have a shot here. He's inside 50, Schwert. Couple of bounces. Stabs at goal. And has kicked it. The Crows will be very keen to hold their lead. North will be just as desperate to peg them back. McGuinness, how long, says Don, and it could be costly. Lee hits for home. Bang! There's the quick answer. Oh, Clarkson was the one who brought it back into play, and it may result in a goal. Oh my dear, it does.
So Wren has it. Goes for the big kick. It's a shocker off the side of the boot. Went very high though. Scholl knocks it down. Taken by Hart from 40 metres out. He snaps. It looks pretty good. His second, and that should wrap it up.
The Crows through Maynard. Started off again. It's McDermott from the middle. Wants Micken. The big man marks right on 50. It's a long kick. It's a very long kick.
The 36-point win brought the confidence back, but it was the following week at a waterlogged Waverley that provided the magic moment of 1992.
McGuinness thumps it to the goal square. And thumps a score. All Adelaide. Marshall takes the mark. Into McDermott. Another bomb to the forward line. From behind. Oh, Bickley! Oh, Bickley has a chance to be a match winner here. He's lining up for his second goal in a minute. Kicked by Wiedemann, a beauty. McDermott. Oh, Hall did well to get back there and make it a contest. No mark either way. McGuinness down injured. Allen for Hawthorn. Great kick. Onto the chest of Condon. He goes short to Dunstall. Oh, top mark.
Down by 9 points at three-quarter time, the Crows staged a gutsy fight back. Darryl Hart is still telling the story.
McDermott. This is going to land 45 metres out. Hacked out of there.
Oh. Have it. The hand pass to Hart. And Darryl Hart. Has it cleared the line? Yes!
9 seconds left. Down goes Maynard. The umpire's going to pull it up.
Brown was unattended. Could have really run and done something with it.
A few days later, the club delisted Romano Negri, Alan Bartlett and Robbie Thompson. It was in preparation for the mid-season draft. where Adelaide came home with Jim West, Andrew Geddes and Alan Schwartz. But on the field, the midwinter saw a slump. Adelaide lost 4 of its next 5 matches, the only win in that time coming against Sydney at Football Park. The 87-point loss to Footscray at Waverley was bad enough, but it was the shocker against Melbourne at home that virtually spelled the end of any finals hopes.
Full forward, a quick kick comes to the pocket. Here's a chance on the left foot and firing in a goal. Has he kicked it? Yes, it's a goal to Melbourne.
It was probably a little disappointing because we didn't feel like we'd made any progress from the first year. We felt like we'd plateaued a little, and whilst we were certainly getting fitter and stronger, it wasn't showing out on the ground, and that was probably the most disappointing thing. And certainly for the season to be over before it was over for us was disappointing.
Adelaide went into crisis mode. The board had to come out and publicly back Corns. The players held their own team meetings. While the final 6 had slipped away, Adelaide was determined to finish the year on a high. Fitzroy was first.
Centre-half forward looking for Micken. Liptak doing really well. Gets it across to Modra. Modra open goal. Is this his first? It is.
Little kick off the ground goes to the advantage of Jamison. Jamison's long kick. Oh, Modra! Just early, got rid of Caven.
That 85-point win was followed by a trip to the MCG, where Adelaide carpeted Richmond by 111, Scott Hodges booting 8. Off to Carrara, and the Bears were taken care of to the tune of 37 points, as the Crows made it 3 in a row. Now, St Kilda had become somewhat of a bogey side for Adelaide, having won all of the 3 matches between the clubs. That changed in round 22.
He's playing a great game. This is the big fella Wren. Now danger for St Kilda because McGuinness swings onto the left foot from 55 metres. Tony McGuinness bats it through for a goal.
They've got a chance with 10 seconds to go. Maynard, well, time could beat them. He's going to have to kick it very quickly. Handball to row, 4 seconds. Oh, go for it. Will it go through? It will! Unbelievable!
Geelong had also dealt out some treatment to Adelaide in the past. The Cats went into the game as one of the favourites for the flag. The Crows turned on one of their best showings yet.
The ground, Lindner's caught, shrugs the tackle, goes for goal and kicks it. It's going to be on the end of this. McGuinness, anyone's guess. McGuinness's kick. See
Hodges finished with 11 as the Crows made it 5 in a row. To this day, it's still their best winning streak. It was almost 6 when they went back to Victoria Park for their last game of the year. The Magpies won the earlier clash by 5 points, and the margin this time would be the same.
Down towards half forward again. Micken, quick get to Rowe, just inside the 50, pulls it back. Oh, what a clever kick. Oh, he was off.
Jarman did take one step.
He's kicked it. 18 points the difference.
Micken and Moncourse. Oh, Micken off the goal. Oh, unbelievable. Unreal.
Adelaide finished its second season again in 9th position, this time with an 11-11 record. Chris McDermott, Tony McGuinness and Ben Hart made the All-Australian side, McDermott also taking out the Club Champion Award. Sean Wren topped the Brownlow votes with 12, Scott Hodges the goal-kicking with 48.
We had a lot of team meetings during that 3rd year, and I guess that's something that we've become famous for. But you know, the players as a group met, you know, probably once every 3 weeks, once every 4 weeks, and just sort of set goals for the upcoming, you know, the next 3 or 4 games. Games we had to win, games we thought we could pinch away, and really kept a real tight grip on the season. So I guess the win-loss ratio didn't get too far away from us.
You only had to see Adelaide's opening Foster's Cup game in 1993 to realise that the season was going to be a spectacular one. North Melbourne came to town on a February night more suited to playing cricket, and they were smacked out of the park.
He got crunched, but he got it away to Tregenza. Now opportunity again for Maynard. Maynard goes directly towards goal. Hodges! Well done. The crowd here in Adelaide love this guy. I'm sure of it.
Thumping kick by Rouvray towards full forward. Here's Rowe going for goal and kicking it. Well, it's a massacre, isn't it?
The final margin was 146 points. The next day, Wayne Schimmelbusch stepped down as Kangaroo coach. Adelaide's pre-season run came to an end the very next week against Essendon at Waverley. Adelaide went into the season without 9 players from the previous year. Aside from the delistings and Darren Smith, who made himself unavailable, David Marshall, Bruce Abernathy and Daryl Hart retired. Into the squad came Greg Anderson, the last South Australian to be recruited under the expatriate rule, Matthew Robran after leaving Hawthorn and standing out of football for a year, and Stuart Wigney through a pre-draft trade. The Crows also picked 5 young South Australians at the national draft. And at the pre-season draft, they collected another batch of homegrowns, which included Nick Pesh. The first game of the premiership season was against Richmond at the MCG. It will be remembered for Tony Modra's first 10-goal haul, and for Tony McGuinness and his altercation with the Crows trainer. By the way, to this day, it's also the last time Adelaide won a game for premiership points in Melbourne.
Back inside, Jamison's got his clever Jarman. Goal.
After taking the flag across the Nullarbor for the first time, reigning Premier West Coast came to town the following week. A huge build-up and a huge crowd, the Crows were 38 points up at half-time and made it 2 wins out of 2.
And that is just a terrific mark. You can't do much better than that.
He's exciting to watch, isn't he? He just sets his mind on attacking that ball and away he goes.
David Brown kicks it down towards centre half forward. Jakovic over the top, got hands to it. Smart does well, worked it in front, lip tack, open goal, puts it through.
Just outside 50, we saw that stammering approach in the first quarter when he kicked the goal. This one's away to the right, but oh, how easy is that? How easy is that?
By now, the interstate media was also growing wary of Adelaide, as the press the next day touted the Crows as genuine finals material. Robert Shaw brought his Fitzroy side to town for what was one of the most thrilling finishes of the year. The Roys were 25 points up at three-quarter time. Then Tony Modra and the Crows pulled it out of the fire.
Kick has gone to Rodney Maynard. Target is Modra. Yes! Oh, he's an exciting player to watch. To close the gap and to stop the run. 40 metres out. That's a lovely kick. That's a goal. Pittman gets the hand pass out to the Wiedemann. Long kick. Oh, that's a sensational mark. That is fantastic football.
Well, you couldn't blame anybody on that in that situation. A lot of pressure. Wiedemann could only do the right thing, and that was go long. They all attempted to do the right thing.
One for Mark of the Week, but he's now got to convert. He does.
Still on centre wing with Brown. He hands it over to Pittman. Now on to Tregenza. He's up to possession. Here's Modra! Wow, looks like Tony Modra's going to be the hero. Magnificent mark again. They might have to make a change there and get Alistair Lynch to pull back.
Under a minute.
This for number 6.
They've got Alistair Lynch to put there, of course. And they're doing it, actually. Tony Modra kicks. And he puts through goal number 6.
From the bounce, a chance for the Crows to score. Back to Tregenza. Goes Rowe. Back to Rowe. Back to Tregenza. Into goal, Tregenza.
Yes! Here's Big Abbott, soccers it off the ground. Rowe again, handballs back. The quick kick, Jamison. Oh, he's hit the post.
But they lead by a point.
Yep.
1 point the difference. Fitzroy need a long kick. The Crows want to bottle it up. Abbott tries to keep it in play. Stevens gets a hurry kick towards centre wing. Jimmy Wine's got to beat a couple. He can't do so. McGuinness is first to recover. They're going to win it. Here comes the side.
I've never that crowd in years. Fantastic.
Adelaide was yet to lose one, Melbourne yet to win one for new coach Neil Baum. A 9-point Demon victory at the MCG changed all that. Then Hawthorn returned to Football Park for the first time since the Crows' historic AFL debut. And with Dunstall booting 9, the Hawks clawed to a 17-point win. Collingwood remained the only team in the AFL Adelaide had never beaten. All of a sudden, Adelaide had squandered 3 on the trot. Yet in the first 7 rounds, Adelaide and North Melbourne had shared the top 2 spots on the AFL Premiership table. They came face to face at headquarters. The Kangaroos under Dennis Pagan had become the glamour outfit of the AFL. They booted the first 5 of the match.
Anderson, who loves to kick the ball long distances. goes to the front of the square. Punch by Micken was disciplined. Robin! Modra! Snapshot, goal!
Modra's inside, should Shepherd. Rasciuto in the pocket, squares it. Micken a chance. Robin kicks his third.
A thrilling 2-point win, but the highlight of the night was when Tony Modra did this.
Modra! That is the mark of the year. I'll say now, no one will beat that. That's the biggest leap since Chilla Porter ran second in the 56 Olympic Games.
Well, 45,000 people have risen to one. It's one of the great moments in the game, isn't it? It really is.
The next week, he set a mark of a different type.
This to become the first Crow to kick 50 goals in an AFL season, and he's done it.
But the Bombers won by 46 points. Despite the Bears starting as favourites, the Crows took the points up north. Then it was South Australia's turn in the sun when the State of Origin side beat the Vics at the MCG for the first time since 1963. Footscray ran straight into a hometown high the next week, and as Modra looked set to head for the altar, Adelaide headed to Princes Park. It was the day news came through of the tragic death of the AFL's Alan Schwab. A torrid first half, but Adelaide still managed to be within 12 at the main break. Then it all went wrong. Carlton booted 13 goals to 2 in the second half to inflict Adelaide's heaviest defeat of the season. Round 13 was billed as the shootout of the super forwards, Gary Ablett and Tony Modra. And while Ablett booted 10 of Geelong's 14 goals, the Crows won by 20. And they were dreading the trip to the SCG. The previous week, the Swans had broken a 26-game losing streak. Adelaide got the points, but they came at a price.
And Maynard looks as if he's going off already. AC joined probably.
Bickley up towards Robin, big stretch, great mark. Held onto it. Hurt himself.
He's done him. Oh,
he's in trouble. Have a look at him. Oh, poor Matthew Robin.
Wow. Look at the way he goes down here.
Broken his leg.
I think I hate to say it, but I think he's broken his leg.
It was then a percentage fortnight. The Saints floored by 93. 5 days later, a record-breaking night against Richmond for both the club and Modra. Modra finished with 13, a club record, but he had a lot of mates in what was a mauling of the Tigers.
Tregenza kicks it high in the air. Rowe can't take the mark. Recovery good. Andrew Jarman, brilliant.
The 139-point margin was also a new record for the club.
You know, I can remember halfway through the year we felt like we were right on the threshold of something, and that, you know, if we could just lift our rating, you know, that 5 or 10%, that probably the difference between the top sides and the bottom sides, we could be right around the mark when the whips were cracking. And you know, Stephen Rowe was a great believer in the destiny of their club, and thought that 93 was going to be a real special year for us, and he would remind us every meeting that, come on you blokes, and he wasn't obviously playing a lot of that stage, but he could sense that there was something special about that year and about the group of players we had, and he wasn't far off the mark.
The race was on for the finals, and West Coast was in danger of missing out. It was all the motivation they needed to record a 37-point win at Subiaco. Robert Shaw's gritty Fitzroy side had made a habit of giving Adelaide some big scares. The Crows had a date at Princess Park on the day that Tony Modra was due to kick his tongue.
He would not be seeing as much daylight as what we're seeing between those sticks, Modra.
He's going for the banana kick, and I think he's kicked this. Great goal. 99 goals to Tony Modra. And kicks the Crows forward. They trail by 10, but Modra has marked 35 metres from goal. He will be kicking for goal number 100 for the season. A magnificent season this player has had. He has thrilled the crowds.
Come from nowhere, has he?
He has.
Take a few deep breaths, Pete, and
enormous talent.
police have gathered behind the goal. I don't think that'll stop them getting onto the ground, though. Tony Modra, goal number 100 for the season. He kicks. I think he's got it. Well done, Anthony Modra. Great effort by the champion football. Here they come. Modra getting mobbed. And we can only hope from the Crows' point of view he doesn't get injured, because this could be pretty dangerous, really. The sentiment's right, but really, I suppose you could thank his lucky stars he's here and not over at Football Park, because how would you be? 45,000 of those fans. I think it's a shame it's not a football park.
But it was the only highlight of the day. The Lions reckon they owed Adelaide 1 or 2, and the 5-point defeat hurt the Crows in the home stretch to the final 6. The following day, Modra returned home to an incredible welcome. At the time, it was dubbed Modramania. It was the spectacular way he went about his craft which earned him the adulation of thousands.
It was the first time I'd ever been part of a bloke kicking 100 goals, and it was certainly special for the team to have somebody in your side. You need someone in your side who can win the game for you like that, and I mean, so many times we saw him just turn it on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and turn the game around. He could turn a game in 5 minutes and win it for you, and I guess every club needs a bloke who can do that, and he certainly did it for us that year.
It feels good, I suppose. It's good to get it out of the way. Now we can just concentrate on the finals, I guess.
The same week, the Crows board reappointed Graham Corns at a time when doubts were being cast over his future. The move was aimed to quell the speculation and set a platform for a finals onslaught.
And we've had some great moments over the last 3 years, or 2 and a bit years, and we've had some bitter disappointments as well, but you've got to understand it's a brand new club. We're not that old. We will only get better, and we will get to where we want to go.
The brief was simple against Melbourne, one of those must-win affairs where the points just had to be got, and they were. It was one of the most open AFL seasons for a long time. With 2 games to go, Adelaide could still miss the finals. Then again, they were still in with a chance of hosting one, and better still, they had a crack at a double chance. Hawthorn had lost 3 in a row. They hadn't lost 4 since 1981, and it was about to stay that way. The Hawks got up, but Adelaide's strong finish was enough to suggest that they might just have their measure the next time around. Graham Corns had predicted the scenario long ago. Adelaide's finals chances would come down to the last game of the season against Collingwood at Football Park. Still the only side the Crows were yet to beat. There was a huge rush on tickets for the biggest home fixture yet. For the Magpies, it was just pride. Geelong's win over West Coast had cost them any chance of making the finals. So the time had come. The streets of Adelaide were empty, and across the state, fans had to watch Collingwood storm to a 32-point lead.
Surely much quicker than that. Now he bombs away as Collingwood had plenty of time to get the big men back. Monkhorst nearly the mark. Is it Liptak? Yes. 2 grabs at it. And Matthew Liptak, he's had 12 possessions already. Well, let's see what he can do with this. He's only 20 metres out. Little difficult the angle, but he's kicked it. It's a goal. So Matthew Liptak kicks his first goal. Boundary thrown in the left forward pocket for Adelaide. Kick by Wiedemann. Oh, this is a miraculous goal. Liptak. Now McDermott. Kicks pretty quickly up towards full forward. Modra! Got it! Oh, miraculous! Well done, Modra! Absolute stunt of the champion, Tony Modra. 2 goals. Crows get their 4th. Liptak, gather, snapshot. He's stopped it! Adelaide in front!
Inspired his 3rd kick of the term. Modra! McGuinness steps around, kicks, bends it back. What a kick!
Quickly takes it away for the Adelaide side. His kick up near 50 metres. Bouncing ball, awkward. Jarman's controls it. Andrew Jarman's got another one. press around. He whacks it towards centre half forward. Nigel Smart can't break the tackle. He's still got the football. Shot the goal, and under pressure, that was quite magnificent. Second goal to Smart.
Plenty of vitality in him. He boots it down towards half forward. Pert pops in front. Doesn't really want to go at the ball. He's trying to retard Modra down there. Opportunity for Smart. Smart does well. Got it to Bone. This is Jarman on the 50. Bacon goal square. It looks good. It's home. And perhaps so too are the Crows.
And I would suggest that playing a final here at Football Park and winning it if you're a Victorian side would almost be the impossible task.
Well, if that's the case, they're playing with their due.
Well, they're there.
After 3 years in the AFL, Adelaide had finally done it. At last, it was here we go, all the way into September.
I mean, it sticks out in our mind quite strongly how, there was so much expectation. We had to make the finals, a lot of pressure on the group of players going into that game, then to be behind early and have to fight and scrape your way back into, claw back into the game, and then to win it like we did. It was really sheer relief at the end of the game, and there was joy afterwards, but at that stage it was just, thank God that we finally made it. And
South Australia was gripped with finals fever. 20,000 were expected to make the trek east. Many of them turned up for the week's final training session. On match day, one of the longest overlands for many years spilled the faithful into Spencer Street Station. At the MCG, the Crows Army wasn't hard to spot. Hawthorn was the firm favourite. Only 2 Hawks hadn't played in a final. Only 1 Crow had.
Cooper. Oh, terrific by Condon. Magnificent defence. The kick out wide. It sits up and goes back over the head of Jarman. Grabbed by Tregenza. Now Andrew Jarman. Centering kick is perfect. Bone marks. Bone, 55 metres out. Oh, it's good. It's home. Crows hit the front. Pittman to McDermott. Through to Liptak. Short pass up towards the 50. Smart, a good pick up. Gets past Jenke easily. Booms a long kick. Oh, terrific kick. Yes!
Deer versus Smart. Deer with the left hand gives it straight to Anderson. Here's a big chance for the Crows again. Randall Bone. Hand pass to Liptak. Liptak to Modra. Modra straightens up from 35 metres and Tony Modra goes bang. And he's kicked the goal. This is Wigney. Wigney to Bickley. Now Smart. And Nigel Smart sets sail for home, and he's kicked it. Great play by Adelaide. Over the back is Wiedemann. Well played by Wiedemann with strength. He's got backup support. A lovely hand pass comes out to Bickley. And Mark Bickley races in the goal and puts it through. Out wide is Wren. Sean Wren chips it to Wiedemann. And Hawthorn might pay for this. Oh, look at this. Liptak, no one near him for 40 metres. Matthew Liptak races in the goal and says, thank you very much, and puts it through. This should be a lay-down Mazaire. He can't get back there. Still going, gets a cruel bounce. Taken away by Jamison. Into Liptak. And Liptak at half-forward sprints clear. Brings it in towards the full forward. And a great mark taken in front. And that is by Wigney. A free kick is played in the end.
At three-quarter time, the Hawks were 7 points up. If ever there was a time to be a Crow supporter, this was it.
Allen gets a bad bounce. Lee does well for Adelaide. Jarman comes in. Bickley. Oh, Liptak, dangerous. Liptak goes long as he can. McGuinness is there. It bounces for a goal.
And towards half forward. Langford the big fist away. Still the Crows. Wigney. Now Nigel Smart. He's kicked it. Yes. Crows in front. Well, would you have believed this? 88-92, and Adelaide lead by 4 points. Simon Tregenza sprints clear, brings it in towards Wigney, who marks 60 metres from goal. Stuart Wigney's got an open goal. He's going to go for the long kick. It's a booming kick. Modra and Langford punches it through. It could be a goal. Yes! The Crows might be home.
Brown spent a lot of the time on the bench. Plenty of pace in the legs. His left footer just doesn't make it. Gowers takes the mark. There's the siren. The Crows, with their own bit of history, have knocked off the mighty Hawks. And in their first attempt at AFL finals, they've advanced to the second semi.
Their arrival that night saw incredible scenes at Adelaide Airport, one of the biggest receptions ever seen. West Coast's win over North Melbourne had also ensured Adelaide the bonus of a double chance. Ansett doubled the number of Melbourne flights at Elder Park, the arrogance of a Hawthorn burial. And to Waverley they headed on the southeastern arterial for the game to determine the season's first grand finalist. Carlton was not only favourite, but also boasted the year's biggest winning margin over Adelaide. Today the margin meant nothing, it was just the result that mattered.
Contested, Bone should have taken the mark, but snaps for goal anyway. In the goal square, a big chance. Whitney gets the first goal.
Bit of confidence, Liptak back onto the Crows.
Heaver. Oh, what? You're kidding. They're kicking goals from places you wouldn't believe they could kick them from.
I suppose it was a shepherding free kick.
Ran from 50 metres. A great looking kick. Home for all money. Brown. Little hand pass. Wiedemann breaks the tackle. Back to McDermott. Just playing behind the pack all the time. Centres the ball beautifully to Bickley. It's Tasker. Needs to get a goal from all his efforts. Right in front, 45 metres out. It gets offline, I believe. Ooh, behind. A goal would have put them in front. Williams floats a hand pass. Hogg had to wait for it. His tap out is clever. Bradley gathers. Now they're a chance to run it into the breeze. Bradley all the way to the 50, all the way to the 30. Craig Bradley goes for goal and kicks a ripper. McDermott to Jarman, great hand pass. Liptak through the middle. His pass wide for Modra. This time Silvani nowhere in sight. Take him to 123 for the season. Looks all right. A goal. He got it from McDermott originally. Now here's McGuinness. McGuinness short pass to Smart. In front of Hannah, a rare occurrence. Smart goes longer. Sun in the eyes of Modra, but he takes the mark.
That was a good mark, wasn't it, Drew? You could see him shielding his eyes before the ball got there.
And a straight kick will put the Crows in front.
A day of missed chances, 28 scoring shots to 21, an 18-point loss, a preliminary final date with Essendon. The next morning, Michael Taylor had the players at the beach to unwind and refocus on the Gilt Edge week ahead. Training that week attracted huge crowds, and on match day, the march to the MCG was a blur. It was the biggest crowd Adelaide had ever played before. It was for a crack at football's biggest prize.
Here, a vacant spot there. Wren won the first tap out of the centre. Denham's quick kick will probably get the job to tag McGuinness. Visca gets a kick away for Adelaide. A half forward, Smart in the box seat. Went with one hand. Grenvold on him. Smart from 55 metres. Centering kick to the goal square. Not a bad one. Hodges sets himself. Chance for Liptak. First goal round the ball. Looks good. Great start. It's the start the Crows wanted. Goes with Smart this time, Somerville. Missed by Modra. McGuinness over the top. Grenvold taps it out. Bickley. Jarman's got good hands normally. Liptak to Brown. Left foot snap kick. A good one by Brown. A goal. A great goal. So the Crows bounce back. Stops, props, handball, puts pressure on Grenvold. Gee, Wiedemann had him for a while. Play on call. Bickley in the pocket. Does he run out of play? Still in there. Here's Brown's already kicked one. Left foot snap. Another great goal.
And it was Ben Hart who eventually got the possession, but McDermott and Visca both worked hard. Jarman, he's kicked towards the half forward. Wonderman couldn't take the mark. Essendon fans appealing for the free kick. No, look at this man. Nigel Smart. Handball over the top. Is it all right? Modra, unselfishly, Smart will get the goal. Brilliant football by Adelaide. It's all clear. It's a goal for Adelaide. Don't worry about that. Ola Renshaw. Handball wide for Long. Backs himself. Nigel Smart. Chance for Modra. Kick it. He does. And he gets another goal. Has he? Yes!
A second bounce. Gets very close to the man. Long kick. Hodges sets himself and takes up the ET.
A little bit of hanging on there before
before the ball got there, Bruce.
Won't this be a handy lead? Another one.
Mercedes on centre wing. Kick in towards, kick it back. High fly at the back was Ben Hart.
Oh, brilliant mark, Robbo.
He's kicked too high. Paul Hill drops what he should have taken. Brown, Nigel Smart runs inside 50, and I think he may have kicked the goal. He has.
Danaher tries to crash through. Jarman breaks the tackle. Left foot pass to Modra. Magnificent.
Very late, Fletcher. That'll be 50 metres against Fletcher also.
Modra from the goal square. Straight through.
Yes, and it'd be a long time since Essendon have kicked a goal, I would think. 20-minute mark of the first quarter. There's a mark taken by Pittman outside 50 metres to give the Crows another chance.
Looks like Salmon may be on the ball at the moment, Robbo. Pittman right up from fullback, taking that mark, followed Salmon up there.
Looks for Modra. Oh, that was too easy.
Too easy.
That was just too easy. I think Dustin kicking from 35 metres directly in front, and it's another Adelaide goal.
He's done all right, Wiedemann. Not a lot of finesse, but competitive. He's kicked to about 30 metres. Oh, yeah! Remaining. Rashudo took it off. Anderson got it from Ring. Anderson's probing kick to the goal square. Hurd getting back. Goal! It's a goal!
At half-time, Adelaide an incredible 42 points up. If it was a grand final, they would have printed the T-shirts. But what happened during that break was later described as Kevin Sheedy's best half-time address ever. The Bombers came out and did this.
Especially when you're only 20 metres from goal.
Buick going for his third. Drop punt, he's got it. They're coming home here, the Bombers. Charging back into this preliminary final. Fourth time out of the centre in this term. Jarman, well played. Maynard, Wiedemann, short. Somebody on the end of it. Wigney gets there, fills the spot. The kick from 45 metres out. Drop punt. It's close. I think he might get it. It's a goal.
23 points is the advantage, so Paul Salmon can bring it back to 17, and he does just that.
It was down to 12 points at three-quarter time. The season of football had come down to one quarter.
He's got it. Scores a level.
McDermott against the float court. Gets the handle away. Maynard gives it to long stages. Watson important. O'Donnell should go. Goes and puts it through. The Bombers are in front.
Can James Hurd kick a goal this time? Looks pretty good. He's happy with it. Centre half back for Adelaide. Very important possession. Watson's got it. Watson goes for goal. Look at that. Goal. Essendon are home in the preliminary final thanks to a goal kicked by Timmy Watson.
In the long history of this great game, to be 7 goals behind at half-time. That's it.
Essendon went on and became premiers.
People say, you know, what happened at half-time? Something that must have happened at half-time. You must have been thinking the game was over. Well, that certainly wasn't the case. And we went into half-time knowing that the next 10 or 15 minutes of the third quarter was where the game was going to be won or lost. If we knew they were going to throw everything at us. We knew Sheedy would move them all around the place, try something different. We were prepared for it, but once it started happening, we found it very difficult to combat and very difficult to stop, and you know, that one hurt a lot.
That season saw 5 players gain All-Australian selection. Tony McGuinness was the club champion and a hot tip in the Brownlow. Tony Modra finished with 129 goals. Pre-season went upmarket in 1994, a trip to Coolum on the Queensland Sunshine Coast. There was time for the odd round of golf. In between, there was some testing triathlons and obstacle courses on the outskirts of the lush Hyatt Resort. But in this brochure, it was going to be a case of Adelaide, terrific one year, disappointing the next. There were changes on the personnel front. Gone were 12 players. Scott Hodges told the club he no longer wanted to be part of it. Mark Micken retired and is now on the match committee. A long-term injury spelled the end for Matthew Kelly, and the final 6 players on the list never got to wear the Crows Guernsey. The notable newcomers were Tony Hall and Brett Chalmers. Both landed in pre-draft trading. After their 1993 heroics, the Crows were rated second favourites for the 94 premiership behind Essendon. As it turned out, the two sides played in the final of the Foster's Cup. Again, the Bombers spoiling the show.
He could not this. He does. Brilliant football.
The season started well enough with a 66-point thrashing of Carlton at Football Park. After a loss to West Coast at Subiaco, Adelaide won its next 2 against Sydney and Geelong. But the signs started to get bad with the worrying loss against Footscray at home. And although the Crows scraped past the Bears at the Gabba, Essendon made them look ordinary at Princes Park. But it was the Hawthorn game at Football Park where the season really began to slide.
Ross has got to leave Jenke, so Gowers probably gives it to him. He drifts it up towards centre wing. Platten and Allen are both there. Together they combine and go towards Hargraves. Could have almost been taken high. Pushes wide to Platten. Geez, had a big day. Allen again. Short little chip in towards Condon. And the path nicely made for him. Creating now for Pritchard, who goes for goal with a long kick, and there's another one.
A 97-point drubbing. To this day, Graham Corn still points to that game as the one which put the writing on the wall.
It was a soft loss on our behalf. I guess we've, something that Robert instills into us now is that if you lose, they pay a price. I mean, any side that's going to beat you is going to pay a price, and that's going to be a physical price, and they're going to know they played footy against you.
They beat Fitzroy by 39 points, lost to Collingwood by 23, then more disaster against North Melbourne.
Wayne Carey, as distinct from seeing your team play. As he goes to fall forward, Wren gets back and Barnett kicks a goal.
It was at about this time that the rumble started. There were rumours of player dissatisfaction, that all was not well within the inner hub of the Adelaide Football Club. It was Graham Corns who was bearing the brunt of it, but the season stayed alive with a win over Melbourne at home. One of the big issues was that of Adelaide's form in Melbourne. They hadn't won a game for points there since round 1 of 1993. Everybody hoped a struggling St Kilda at Waverley would provide the breakthrough. Instead, it produced another first.
Well, we haven't had a draw this season. Will this be the first? It looks like it. Wiedemann just inside the line. Back to Jamieson. There goes the siren. It's a draw. A draw at Waverley. The first ever between St Kilda and Adelaide.
The alarm bells got louder when Richmond, the side Adelaide in the past had kicked record scores against, came to town and won by 7 points.
Puts it back. Wellman. Oh, Richardson. Richardson again. Was he grabbed? Wellman. Lane. Smart. Loses it. Richardson. Could be the sealer. No. Up in the air. In front of the Richmond goal. Oh, it's a mark. It's a mark. The deal. This 7 points in front. It matters not that it drifts away and hits the post. Who cares if you're a Tiger?
The reaction wasn't good, a 66-point thumping against Carlton at Princes Park.
Terrific player, Lynn to Hogg inside the last minute. Will there be a final goal for the Blues? Kutafiti's got Hammer all on his own, goes for goal and finishes it in style. They'll love that.
With the form out the window, the popular prediction was that the West Coast game would be the one to blow Adelaide's finals hopes apart. Instead, it was probably the year's best win. The frustration of seeing just what Adelaide was still capable of.
Modra drops back. Rashuda goes for distance. Low percentage kick. Big packet to fall of the ball. Ingerson.
But the Crows had been teetering on the brink. The Swans came to Adelaide, and by night's end, the season was as good as gone. It was also the game where Modra was absent after being suspended by the match committee for disciplinary reasons. Everybody was crying crisis, and the critics and forecasters of doom had a field day. Mind you, they were given plenty of ammunition, as one bad turn was followed by another. The Crows were due to travel to Cardinia Park and the Western Oval. The former was a 53-point loss. The latter wasn't much better.
Keep going. Now they'll get a closer. Has he kicked it? Or did it come off
It's a goal.
Yes, it's there.
Further field to Quill. He can go to That's a relay free, surely. There is a relay free, and look at that. Oh, Keelan Reynolds has dropped it. Well played by Beveridge. Smothered off the boot by Scott Lee. Here's a chance for Adelaide. They need McInnes to fire. Oh, McInnes' handball straight to Quill. Look at this. Grant's going to mark now. Gee, the difference in the forward setup. The forward line's unbelievable. See what happens. This is Pittman on Quill. But I mean, it's effective. Yeah, it's effective, this football. Well, here's Chris Grant. Kicking, will it clear the pack? I don't think so, or did it? Yes, a goal!
While most had been thinking it, they were now starting to say it, as the Corns to be sacked story became the most popular script going around town. All the club would say is that all would be reviewed at season's end. But it couldn't come quick enough. There was a 3-point win over Brisbane and a 57-point high over Essendon, but it was all too little, too late.
Alessio fisted away, Pesh, they've got the numbers. Wellman going for another goal. He kicks from 45 and it's through, his third. Alessio and Pittman. Pittman gets it down. O'Donnell goes to ground. Pittman suckers off the ground and somehow found Tony Hall.
Ridley, no time to react to that one.
This for number 6.
The curtain came down in an unspectacular match against Hawthorn at Waverley. Essendon and Adelaide, the two pre-season favourites, finished 10th and 11th respectively. Sean Wren and Mark Rasciuto made the All-Australian side. The ruckman also crowned club champion. They said Modra had a disappointing season, but he still finished with 70. Then came the post-season drama. The board met on the Monday and set into motion a review of all aspects of the club. The question was, would they sack Graham Corns, who still had a year to run on his contract? The days passed, then came the answer on September 14.
The board has come to the conclusion that in the best interest of the Adelaide Football Club, the club should seek a replacement coach for season 1995.
Well, I don't say I agree. I can agree with the decision, and I don't feel good about it, but it is their right as an employer, and that's what I've always been. I've been an employee of this club. It's their right as an employer to make that decision. Now, I can't beat them around the head, and whilst we can discuss and debate it at length, the decision has been made. And if you've got some intuition, you read between the lines, and I didn't feel particularly comfortable from about yesterday onwards.
That afternoon, the man who would replace him was already here. They say there's two types of coaches in football, a sacked one and one who's about to be. While he had his critics, Corns accepted his dismissal with integrity. His influence on the Adelaide Football Club from day one was profound. While there is some truth that he lost the support of key players, there's also a feeling that it was a case of shooting the pianist when it was the piano that was out of tune. But no one would ever dispute the passion Corns had for the Adelaide Football Club, and indeed his passion for South Australian football.
Graham's demise was probably a situation of circumstances, I think. You know, in the 4 years he'd done a tremendous amount for the Adelaide Football Club. He'd brought a group of players together, created a club environment, certainly enhanced the careers of a lot of players, and given us, he's a professional person, he makes you work hard. I think it was just time for a change.
5 days later, and Robert Shaw had graduated from the arrivals lounge to the boardroom.
I won't beat around the bush. What you see, and that is my strength, what you see is what you get.
And I just think, although we're inconsistent, I just think integrity, character and respect and perseverance in footy are the four major things that I always talk about, because it has to be along those lines. It has to be those sort of intangible things, because basically anyone can beat anyone on a given day. There's not too much difference between top and bottom, well, there is, but not too much difference, because so it has to come down to that club spirit, that the character, the mental strength of the side. So you're always trying to work on those sort of things.
The new regime settled in. Also gone, Chairman of Selectors John Halbert, David Marshall was called in as the club set out on a policy of bringing past players into the fray. And there was a change in leadership, Tony McGuinness taking over the captaincy. There was no Rapid Bay, no commando camps and no Coolum. It was off to Arena. Robert Shaw said it was a team-building weekend. Spirit, camaraderie and mateship were the buzzwords. After the disappointments and dramas of last season, the team's morale had been through the ringer. The new coach was working on the mindset.
That was one of my main jobs. I was under the impression, and through the homework I did and talking to people, that morale was pretty low and that it wasn't a real sort of footy club atmosphere. And I spent a hell of a lot of time, not so much on the footy side, but building the confidences of people in myself and the club and each other. And I think we went a long way to achieving that, and that came through in the pre-season.
The Crows had embarked on an aggressive recruiting drive over the summer. It brought them Jason McCartney from Collingwood, Matthew Connell from West Coast, and in the move of the summer, Andrew McLeod, who was freely tipped as one of the nation's top 5 draft picks. They traded Randall Bone to Hawthorn, Chris Groom to Fremantle, and Peter Turner to Carlton. There was no room for Stuart Wigney, Eugene Warrior or Stephen Schwerd. At the pre-season draft, they targeted Peter Vardy from Central and Tyson Edwards from West. The early season signs were good. The trial game win over Melbourne showed the Crows had a new edge about them.
And the hand pass perfect to Ben Hart. Here's kick to half forward. There's Wren just back on the ground, dominating just like he'd never left it. Modra leads from full forward. Look at this. Watch out.
Hit that pass perfectly as Modra runs into the open goal.
It got better in the opening round of the Ansett Cup against Geelong.
Here come the Crows again. Long kick to centre half forward. Adler to the back. Didn't quite reach him. Comes off to Pesh. Running shot. Left foot. Good shot.
West Coast also got short shrift from Adelaide.
The Crows kick towards half forward. A terrific lead by Wynn, but taken by Wellman. Wellman can have another bounce, but he goes for goal and puts it through.
He's off injured. Evans, long looping hand pass. Gehrig, you're just about caught. Quick look at the ground there. Smart, he's got terrific at half forward. Wellman, if he can get off with his right foot to kick a goal, he's got him shot on the lead. Not that marks 30 metres up. Terrific try.
And when the Crows accounted for Sydney, Adelaide was again through to the grand final of the pre-season competition.
They run it out again. All the hand pass come over the top. It originated from McKinnon. They may be okay. Still going. Robert gives it to him for 55 metres. He goes with a drop punt.
From the outset, Shaw said the Ansett Cup would be used as a launching pad for the season proper. He experimented with players and tactics. A grand final along the way was a bonus, but the West Lakes Trophy cabinet would remain bare.
Been a great team effort by North Melbourne tonight. Stabs it into the forward zone, but good interception by Cluzak. Doesn't matter, it's all over. North Melbourne are the champions.
It so happened that the Kangaroos were also the opponents for the first match of the season. The Crows made no secret that they had set themselves for this game for months. Adelaide led for most of the night, except when it counted most.
A thumping kick by Corey McKernan. At the back, chance, Anthony Watts kicked a goal, North are in front. You wouldn't believe it.
In the weeks to come, there'd be those that wondered just how much that loss had taken out of the players. Next up, Brisbane at Carrara.
Over the back it goes. Bad bounce for McLean. McIver may get another one here. Around he comes. He wobbles it through. Yes!
All of a sudden, the pre-season seemed an eternity ago. The Crows were 0-2, their worst start to a season in their history. The first premiership points came the next week against St Kilda, but boy were they expensive. Last year's club champion and the AFL's best ruckman out for a season with a wrecked knee. Critics across the nation scrubbed the Crows. No Wren, they said, no Adelaide. The acid test came 7 days later against reigning Premier West Coast.
The outer side ball was up. Chalmers with him. And the stadium erupts. And that Rose just won the crowd. What a terrific scene. What a great game of football.
Jubilant scenes as Adelaide defied the forecasters of doom with a street-fighting victory. but there was an ominous precedent. The terrific win in similar circumstances over the Eagles last year was followed by a hollow loss to Sydney.
It flips to the back to kick it. Inside 50 he goes, being run down by Pittman. Well done to keep it alive. Lockett is there now. Only 20 metres from goal. Back to kick it. Snap for goal! The Swans are in front!
Tony McGuinness was on the sidelines with an injured knee. The game was in the balance at three-quarter time. Before long, it was all over. Melbourne hadn't won a game all year when they came to Football Park, and in the last term they were in the box seat to break through before Adelaide rescued it. It wasn't a pretty night, but with two desperate sides, it was never going to be any different. A contrast the next week when Adelaide took on Richmond, who hadn't lost a game.
The crowd factor, sorry. Knights, Daffy, good play by the Tigers.
The Tigers made it 7 in a row. When you take into account the North Melbourne game, just 3 kicks had separated Adelaide from 2 wins in Melbourne. Shaw conceded his side was playing anything but flash football, but they were still hot favourites to knock off his former club Fitzroy.
Once more falling to the ground at Johnson. Johnson dribbling across to Malloy. Malloy to the run, open goal. McCarthy, it's all over.
As they head for the car park. A little muttering.
Here's Boyd. Let's finish it off, says the skipper in style.
The Lions had shown a lot of cheek, and what happened in the last quarter triggered one of the most dramatic weeks of the season so far.
Competition.
Well, yes. Manson shoots towards goal. There's another one. Victory.
For the life of me, I cannot really explain, and I must be honest, cannot explain a 10-goal burst by Sydney and an 8-goal burst by Fitzroy in 20 minutes of football.
The board called an emergency meeting. The players closed ranks and called one of their own. Shaw sought out certain individuals, and on the Wednesday morning, he had the squad on the University Oval for a 6 o'clock training session. Across the nation, the Crows were attracting no sympathy. Adelaide and Hawthorn had staged some pivotal matches in the past. There was that first game in 1991, the one-pointer at Waverley, and the blowout that began the slide in 1994. A wet Saturday night in Adelaide would provide another talking point for years to come.
Going to be kept in on that outer side. Here comes Dunstall. He can do this time for his first goal of the night. Leans back on that one.
Goal.
And that's going to really hurt.
Hawthorn shot to a 40-point lead. Given the conditions, it was probably worth much more. Shaw made the comment that his players had gone out with not numbers on their backs, but with question marks. Now was the time for some answers.
Will come to life. Hart pushes the ball down inside 50. Hart is going to have a shot. A left foot snap goes over the top. And that is the start they want.
McLeod, long kick, going to about 50 metres. Held without the ball was Kluzek. No free kick. Now Modra with his back to goal as he held without it. Play goes on. Hart suckers it through. I'm not sure if it touched. I don't think so. Goal. Side. Up in front was Hart. Loose ball behind McCartney. 55 metres out. Bacon goal square. It skips through. Goal.
Ground by Tregenza. They're down towards McLeod territory once again. Nick Petch to put them in front. Yes!
The Crows cleared with 51 seconds on the clock. On the end of it was an 18-year-old in his second game.
Comes away, big roar from the crowd, kicks inside the 50. They turn the defence around. McLeod looking for his 15th possession, deep in the pocket, stops it. Was he held? He goes on, open goal! An unlikely hero. He's only got a couple of seconds to go, and it'll be...
We've obviously been to hell and back in a very short period of time.
Kardinia Park was pretty close to Crow's own hell in the past. Probably no coincidence that the average losing margin there was the Devils' own number 87. But at least someone up there was looking after the full forward.
With a long kick down towards Modra, one grab. Could be hurt. Modra could be hurt. And so's Graham. They're both down. Riccardi's taken the mark.
It had all the makings of a serious knee injury. Even in the coach's box, the scenario of no Wren and no Modra for the rest of the season was sinking in. As it was, just an ankle, 2 weeks. The Crows got to within 2 points in the last term, but game 99 would be a loss. Footscray was Adelaide's 100th AFL opponent. The Bulldogs came to town having lost 5 on the trot. The Crows had all the incentive and at the halfway mark of 1995 brought up their 6th win in 11 games.
He shovels it out towards McCartney. McCartney now under pressure, twists and turns and dodges and weaves and gets the kick to the man of the moment. Forward of the wing, probing kick inside the big oh, what a big lick by Rashuda. 40 metres. Gets underneath and pops it high into the air. Big pack of players. Pittman off the ground. Beautifully down behind the pack. Pesh favoured by that from Pittman. Gets it across to McLeod. 20 metres out. Kicks the ground over in the final turn. Kicks down towards the attacking 50 for his side. Hargraves there with Wellman. Edwards most impressed with him. Nicely done. Great poise. Kept his head. Gave it to Jarman. Jarman pulls it back towards the wing. McCartney hit the ground running. Away he goes. Yeah. He thought about the hand pass. Brickage it was who ran him down. Pesh beautifully done to Rowe. Rowe was on initially for the hand pass. Now he goes looking for Chalmers. Well, Chalmers missed it completely. Slapped towards the line by Southern. Chalmers a chance then. Back towards Connell. This should be a goal. A question of accuracy from 40 metres out. He hits the spot.
But you like to think that McLeod and Wellman and McKinnon, these sort of blokes, are being taught now by me. Pittman, Wren, the younger blokes, Rashudo, Hart, are being taught that they're the next nucleus of hopefully the first Crows premiership, somewhere between game 101 and 199, mate.
Start spreading the news.
The Centenary Ball at the Adelaide Convention Centre brought the curtain down on 100 games of Crows football. It also brought together the main players in what's been an extraordinary stanza in South Australian sport. A chapter with a storyline and a cast of characters who have captured the emotions of thousands. And the pages keep on turning.
Australian Football Video is proud to present the Perfect Prezzy. In fact, a range of over 100 perfect prezzies. You can choose from player profiles, value-packed back-to-back packs, special events, and fantastic compilations. Only from Australian Football Video. So elbow your way into any sensible retail outlet and buy a prezzy that's sure to please.
I'd like to see that, Harry.
Set and lazy axle.